It was a bright morning at the airport. People were smiling, holding coffee cups, dragging their suitcases behind them. Kids laughed. Parents looked tired but happy. It seemed like just another normal flight day. Flight 724 was ready to leave for New York. Passengers were boarding, one by one, showing their tickets and walking to their seats. Everyone was in a good mood. Everyone, except one woman. Her name was Karen. Karen wore expensive clothes and large dark glasses. She walked through the gate like she owned the plane. Her face looked angry, even though no one had done anything to her. The flight attendant at the door smiled and said, "Good morning, Mom." Karen didn't smile back. She just rolled her eyes and walked to her seat -14A. She sat down with a heavy sigh, looked around, and muttered, "Ugh, I hate flying." The passengers around her tried not to look, but they noticed. A young couple sitting near her whispered quietly, "Did you see that?" The woman said, "Yeah," her partner replied. "She already looks mad." The flight continued boarding. People were still coming in. One mother had a baby in her arms. The baby was crying softly. Karen covered her ears and shouted, "Can someone shut that thing up?" The mother looked shocked. "He's just a baby," she said kindly. Karen turned her head and said, "Then don't bring a baby on a plane." The mother's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed quiet. A flight attendant came over, trying to help. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" the flight attendant asked. Karen stared at her. "Do I look okay to you?" She snapped. "I've been waiting for 30 minutes. This airline is a joke." The flight attendant stayed calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We're just finishing boarding. We'll take off shortly." Karen crossed her arms and looked out the window, mumbling something under her breath. The plane door finally closed. Everyone buckled their seatbelts. The pilot made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 724. We're ready for departure. Please keep your seatbelts fastened." As the plane moved down the runway, the engines roared. People looked out the windows, excited to fly. But inside seat 14A, Karen was fuming. She pressed the call button before the plane even took off. A flight attendant came quickly. "Yes, Mom?" she asked. Karen pointed at her empty drink tray. "I want a sparkling water. Now." The attendant gave a polite smile. "Service will begin once we are in the air, ma'am. Please wait a few minutes." Karen rolled her eyes again. "Unbelievable," she said loudly. "This is the worst flight of my life." Passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably. One man took out his phone and quietly started recording. Something didn't feel right. There was a strange tension in the air. The plane lifted off the ground. The clouds passed by the windows. But inside, the storm was just beginning. Karen took off her seatbelt even though the seatbelt sign was still on. The same flight attendant gently walked up again. "Ma'am, please keep your seatbelt fastened. It's for your safety." Karen gave her a cold look. "Don't tell me what to do," she said. "I fly all the time. I know the rules." The attendant didn't argue. She stepped back quietly, but her face showed concern. In the back of the plane, two other flight attendants whispered to each other. "Is she going to be a problem?" "She already is." Still, no one could predict what was about to happen. Karen looked around like she owned the cabin. She glared at other passengers. She sighed loudly on purpose. She seemed ready for a fight. And then, as if the sky felt her mood, dark clouds started to gather outside. Lightning flashed far in the distance. But the real storm wasn't outside the window. It was sitting in seat 14A. And soon, the entire plane would be caught in it. The plane was in the air now. Passengers relaxed in their seats. Some were reading books. Others were watching movies. A few were already asleep. But not Karen. She sat straight in seat 14A, her arms crossed, her lips tight, and her eyes filled with anger. She looked around like everything annoyed her. The baby from earlier had finally fallen asleep in his mother's arms. The mother closed her eyes, trying to rest. But then, Karen pressed her call button again. A flight attendant appeared quickly. "Yes, Mom. How can I help you?" Karen didn't even look at her. "The air is too cold," she said. "Fix it." "I can bring you a blanket, ma'am," the attendant offered with a polite smile. Karen snapped. "I don't want a blanket. I want the air fixed." "I'm sorry, Mom," the attendant replied gently. "We can't change the temperature for one seat." Karen raised her voice. "So now I'm the problem." Great customer service. Passengers turned to look. The young couple nearby exchanged nervous glances. A man in the next row shook his head quietly. The baby's mother pulled her blanket tighter and stared at the window, pretending not to hear. Karen wasn't done. When the drink cart finally came around, she glared at the flight attendant pushing it. "About time," she muttered loudly. "I've been waiting forever." "What would you like to drink, ma'am?" the attendant asked kindly. "Sparkling water with ice," Karen replied. The attendant nodded and carefully poured the drink. As she handed it over, the plane hit a small bump, just light turbulence. A few drops of water spilled on Karen's tray. Karen gasped like it was poison. "Are you serious?" she shouted. "You just spilled it. Are you blind?" "I'm so sorry, Mom," the attendant said quickly. "Let me get a napkin." But Karen didn't let her finish. "Don't bother. You people are useless," she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The flight attendant stood there silently for a moment. She nodded and walked away. In the back of the plane, she spoke quietly to another crew member. "She's becoming aggressive. Should we report it to the captain?" the other asked. "Not yet," she replied. "Let's try to stay calm." Meanwhile, Karen sat back in her seat, sipping her water with a smug smile. She looked proud of herself, but the passengers around her were not smiling. The man across the aisle took out his phone and began recording again. "Someone has to document this," he whispered. The baby's mother pulled her child closer. The young couple exchanged nervous looks. No one wanted trouble in the air. But they all knew something was building. Something worse. A little later, a flight attendant walked down the aisle checking seatbelts again. "Ma'am, your seatbelt is unfastened. Please buckle it up." Karen raised one eyebrow. "I'll do it when I feel like it." "Ma'am, it's for your safety. We're expecting light turbulence soon." Karen leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Are you threatening me?" "No, ma'am. I'm just doing my job." Karen slammed her tray shut and snapped the seatbelt loudly. "Happy now?" she said coldly. The flight attendant walked away silently again, but her hands were shaking. In the front of the plane, the captain received a quiet message from the crew. "Captain, we have a difficult passenger in 14A. She's verbally aggressive and refusing instructions." The captain sighed. "Keep eyes on her. If she becomes physical, we'll have to alert ground security." Back in the cabin, Karen took out her phone and began typing angrily. "I'm going to post this online," she said loudly. "Everyone will know how badly I was treated." The flight attendants kept calm, but they were now watching her closely. Karen thought she had control. She thought no one could stop her. But what she didn't know was that her every move was being recorded, that her every word was being heard, and that her next action would change everything. The plane flew calmly above the clouds. From the outside, everything looked peaceful. But inside, the tension was growing with every passing minute. Karen sat in seat 14A, scrolling through her phone. She was angry, restless, and ready to snap. Her earlier shouting had already made the flight attendants nervous. But now, something worse was about to happen. The baby behind her started crying again. Not loudly, just soft, tired whimpers. The mother rocked the baby gently and whispered, "Shh, it's okay, baby." But Karen wasn't okay. She turned around sharply and shouted, "This is ridiculous. Control your kid. The mother's eyes widened in shock. She tried to stay calm. I'm sorry, he's just a little uncomfortable. Karen stood up suddenly, pointing a finger at the mother. Maybe you shouldn't fly if you can't keep your kid quiet. Everyone around turned to look. The baby cried louder. The mother held her child tightly, blinking back tears. A flight attendant rushed over. Ma'am, please sit down and calm yourself. Karen turned to her. No, I've had enough. This woman and her brat are ruining my flight. The attendant's voice was firm now. This is your final warning, ma'am. Sit down. Do not yell at other passengers. Karen's face turned red with rage. Then it happened. She raised her hand and pushed the flight attendant hard in the shoulder. Gasps filled the cabin. The baby screamed louder. The young couple nearby stood up in shock. The man with the phone kept recording without blinking. Karen shouted, "You people are all the same. No respect for paying customers." The flight attendant stepped back, clearly shaken. Another crew member came running. "She touched you?" he asked. The attendant nodded. "She pushed me." The co-pilot was immediately alerted, and the captain made a calm but serious decision. "We'll continue flying," he said over the radio, "but contact the ground. Security should meet us when we land." In the cabin, Karen was still yelling. "I know my rights. You can't tell me what to do. I'm calling my lawyer." But it was too late. The lead flight attendant approached with two other crew members. Their expressions were calm but firm. "Ma'am, we have video evidence of your behavior," the lead said. "You physically assaulted a crew member. You've endangered others on this flight." Karen laughed like it was a joke. "So what? Are you going to throw me off the plane midair?" "No," the attendant replied. "But you will be met by security when we land." Karen froze. "What? Security?" The passengers all stared in silence now. Even the baby had stopped crying. Karen's voice was lower now. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything." "You pushed a flight attendant," the man with the phone said loudly. "I have it on video." Karen looked around. No one was on her side. The young couple shook their heads. The baby's mother stared at her with quiet strength. The man with the phone looked directly into her eyes and said, "You brought this on yourself." Karen slowly sat back down. For the first time on the flight, she looked small. Her mouth was shut. Her hands were shaking. But the damage was done. The rest of the flight continued quietly. People whispered, eyes still wide with shock. The flight attendants did their job, but their smiles were gone. Their hands trembled. Their voices were quiet. And Karen, she didn't say a word for the rest of the flight. She just sat there, frozen, waiting for what was coming. Because deep inside she knew this was far from over. The captain's voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing in 20 minutes. Please fasten your seatbelts and prepare for arrival." Passengers quietly adjusted their seats. The mood on the plane was tense. Everyone remembered what had just happened. Karen sat silently in her seat. Her face was pale now. She wasn't shouting anymore. She wasn't complaining. She was just scared. She looked around, but no one looked back at her. The people she once screamed at now ignored her completely. The baby's mother rocked her child gently, her face calm and quiet. The young couple whispered to each other. The man with the phone was still recording from time to time. He didn't want to miss anything. Karen leaned over to him and whispered, "Delete that video." He didn't even answer. She leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes. "This isn't happening," she whispered to herself. But it was happening. Down below, on the ground, airport security was already waiting. They stood at the gate with serious faces, speaking to airline staff. One man in a black suit had a folder in his hand. "She assaulted a flight attendant mid-flight," a crew member told him over the radio. Passengers witnessed it. "We have video proof." The man nodded. "We'll handle it." Back in the air, The flight attendants were preparing for landing, but one of them paused near Karen's seat. Her eyes were still red from the earlier push, but her voice was calm. "Ma'am," she said softly, "when we land, please remain seated. Authorities will come to speak with you." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. She just nodded. The plane touched down smoothly, but no one clapped. No one cheered. Everyone was waiting for what would happen next. The seatbelt light turned off. Passengers began to stand up and take their bags from the overhead bins. Except Karen. She stayed frozen in her seat, staring at her hands. Then came the voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Security personnel will be boarding the plane shortly." A hush fell over the entire cabin. 2 uniformed officers entered first. Behind them was the man in the black suit. He walked slowly down the aisle, stopping at row 14. "Karen Whitman?" he asked in a firm voice. Karen looked up. "Yes." "You are being removed from this flight for assaulting a crew member and disturbing public order." Karen's eyes filled with tears. "Please, this is a mistake. I didn't mean to." "We have witness statements and video," the officer said. "Please stand up." Passengers watched in total silence as Karen slowly stood. One officer took her small handbag. The other gently took her arm. "I'm not a criminal," she whispered. The man in the black suit replied, "That's not for you to decide." They walked her down the aisle. Every step she took felt heavy. The baby's mother looked at her with sad eyes, but said nothing. The flight attendant she pushed stood near the door, her chin held high. Karen passed her, eyes lowered. She didn't apologize. Maybe she wanted to. Maybe she was too proud. Maybe it was too late. As they reached the plane door, someone called out softly, "Mom." Karen turned. It was the man with the phone. "I hope this teaches you something." Karen looked at him, angry, hurt, and embarrassed. But she said nothing. Then the officers let her off the plane. Outside, flashes from cameras began. A few reporters had already gathered. News was spreading fast. A woman arrested for attacking flight crew midair. Passenger meltdown caught on camera. Karen covered her face as the cameras clicked. Behind her, inside the plane, someone finally broke the silence. The young woman in the couple whispered, "I've never seen anything like that before." The flight attendant nodded. People think they can treat others however they want, but not today. And as the doors closed behind them, everyone on board knew that flight would be remembered forever. By the time Karen stepped out of the airport in handcuffs, the world already knew her name. The video taken by the man on the flight had been posted online just minutes after landing. The title read, "Entitled Woman Pushes Flight Attendant. Instant Karma at Airport." Within an hour, it had over 500,000 views. By morning, it had crossed 5 million. People around the world watched as Karen screamed at the young mother, as she insulted the crying baby, and finally, as she pushed the flight attendant in full view of everyone. The comments exploded. She thought she was untouchable. Not anymore. Respect to the flight crew for staying calm. This is what happens when you think the world owes you something. Karen sat alone in a small holding room at the airport, her phone buzzing nonstop. She had been allowed to make one call. She called her lawyer, her hands shaking. "They have a video," she whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The lawyer's voice was calm but serious. "You're being charged with assault. And it's not just the airline. The internet is on fire. Your name is everywhere." Karen held her head in her hands. This was supposed to be a vacation. Meanwhile, back in the airport, the flight attendant she pushed sat in the staff lounge. Her name was Lena. She held a cup of coffee in her hands, but her thoughts were heavy. "I've dealt with rude passengers before," she told a fellow crew member. But this felt different, like she thought she owned the air. Her supervisor came in and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing, Lena. You stayed calm. You followed the rules. You showed professionalism." Lena smiled softly. Thank you. I just want to go home and hug my daughter. News reporters started calling the airline. Can we speak to the brave flight attendant? Is the woman being charged? Will she be banned from flying? The airline released a short statement. We do not tolerate violence or harassment toward our staff. Our crew acted with professionalism and care. We are cooperating with the authorities. Outside, the young mother from the flight sat with her baby in the terminal. She looked tired, but peaceful. A woman approached her. Excuse me, you were on that flight, weren't you? With the baby. The mother nodded, nervous. I saw the video, the woman said. You handled it so well. You didn't fight back. You stayed strong. Tears filled the mother's eyes. I was just trying to protect my child. You did, the woman said. You did more than that. You reminded us all to stay calm, even when others lose control. That moment was shared too. A short clip of the mother rocking her baby, silently enduring the abuse, touched hearts online. People began calling her the calm mom. Meanwhile, Karen's life began to fall apart. Her job called. We're letting you go. Your behavior does not reflect our values. Her landlord texted. I saw the video. Please find another place. I won't renew your lease. Even her own family stopped answering her calls. She tried to explain. She tried to post a message online. I was stressed. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Please don't judge me for one mistake. But the internet wasn't ready to forgive. Because people remembered what she did. They remembered how she treated others. And now, she was facing the consequences. Karen wasn't just a woman who lost her temper. She had become a symbol of what happens when kindness is forgotten and power is abused. And the world had moved on. 1 week had passed since the flight incident. Karen hadn't left her apartment. Curtains were shut. Her phone lay face down on the table, buzzing with calls she no longer wanted to answer. She was tired, scared, and most of all, ashamed. Every time she opened the internet, her face was there. News channels played the video again and again. Social media showed new memes, new jokes, new anger. She had become the face of arrogance. But something inside Karen was starting to change. She had watched the video many times. At first, she denied it. That's not who I am, she whispered to herself. But after the 10th time, something broke. Her eyes filled with tears. That is who I was, in that moment. She looked at the screen, saw herself yelling, saw herself pushing the flight attendant. And for the first time, she said the words out loud. I was wrong. Down the street, in a small apartment, Lena, the flight attendant Karen had pushed, was folding laundry. Her daughter, 6 years old, sat on the floor drawing flowers. Mommy, someone at school said you're on YouTube, the little girl said. Lena smiled gently. Yes, baby. Mommy was on the news for doing her job. Did the mean lady say sorry? Lena paused for a moment. No, not yet. But that was about to change. That same night, Karen sat down in front of her laptop. She turned on her camera. Her hands were shaking. She took a deep breath and hit record. Her video began simply. Hello, my name is Karen Whitman. A week ago, I made a terrible mistake. I was angry. I was impatient. And I lost control. I insulted a mother with a baby. I pushed a flight attendant who was only doing her job. There is no excuse. I was wrong. Karen's voice cracked. She wiped her tears but kept speaking. I don't expect people to forgive me. I just want to say, I'm sorry. To the woman with the baby, I'm so sorry for making your journey harder. To the flight attendant, I'm sorry for hurting you and disrespecting your work. To everyone on that flight, and to everyone who saw the video, I'm sorry. I've learned a lesson I'll never forget. Then she paused, looked straight into the camera. I hope one day I can make things right. She ended the video and uploaded it with the title, My Apology From the woman on that flight, the internet reacted fast. Some still mocked her. Some still said it was too late. But others said, "This feels real. She looks broken. I can see she's hurting. Maybe this will change her." We all make mistakes. Owning it takes courage. The video went viral again. This time, not because of hate, but because of the honesty. Lena saw it too. She was sitting on her couch when a message popped up on her phone. A friend had sent the link. She watched it quietly, her daughter asleep beside her. When it ended, Lena sat there for a long time, thinking. Then she picked up her phone and wrote a message. "Dear Karen, thank you for your apology. I forgive you. I hope you truly change and treat people with kindness from now on." Karen read the message, and for the first time in days, she cried, not from shame, but from relief. Sometimes one apology isn't enough to fix everything, but sometimes it's the first step to becoming someone better. 2 months had passed since the viral flight incident. Karen had lost her job, her reputation, and the comfort of being unknown. But strangely, she felt lighter. The mask she wore for so many years, proud, cold, superior, was finally gone. Now she walked slower, spoke softer, and listened more. She spent her days volunteering at a local shelter, folding clothes, cleaning rooms, and serving food to people who had nothing, but still smiled. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because she finally understood something. Kindness isn't weakness, it's power. One evening, while helping pack school supplies for kids in need, Karen heard someone speak behind her. "Excuse me, are you Karen Whitman?" She turned around, ready for another insult, another angry face. But instead, she saw Lena, the flight attendant. Karen froze. I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I know saying it online isn't the same, but I meant every word." Lena nodded. "I know. That's why I came." Karen's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" Lena smiled gently. "Because I wanted to see if you really changed. And you did." They stood in silence for a moment. Two women, once strangers, now forever linked by one terrible moment. And what came after? "I help here sometimes too," Lena said. "They're short on volunteers." Karen's voice was quiet. "I can come every day. I want to." Lena extended her hand. "Then let's do it together." And just like that, a second chance was born. Later that week, a small article was published online. Viral flight passenger turns life around, now helping others with the flight attendant she once pushed. It didn't go viral. There were no millions of views. But it didn't need to. Because the real story was never about going viral. It was about changing for real. It was about a woman who thought she was better than others, until the world showed her she wasn't. It was about a mother who stayed calm for her child, a flight attendant who stayed strong in chaos, and a second chance that no one expected, but everyone hoped for. Moral of the story: sometimes life brings us to our knees, but in that low place we find the truth. And from there, if we're brave enough to change, we rise again, not to be perfect, but to be better.